Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be recreating Gordon Ramsay scrambled eggs. But before we get into the recipe, let's take a look at the original. Okay, so right off the bat, this is not actually Gordon Ramsay cooking these eggs. It's one of the celebrity chef's sous chefs. He's just there for moral support. So that being said, I don't think it's going to be too hard to recreate this because it looks really simple. The pan is on the stove, the butter is already in the pan, we've got some fresh parsley, we've got our milk. Now he's going to add a pinch of salt and a pinch of black pepper. I'm guessing this is cracked fresh from a pepper mill. And then he's going to crack 2 free-range eggs directly into the pan. Now we're going to break them up a little bit, and then he's going to put a lid on top. This is probably to keep them warm. And then after about a minute or two, we're going to turn off the heat, and he's just going to fold them over until they're fully cooked. After about another minute or so, he finishes folding them over. We'll plate it up, garnish with a little bit of parsley and a little bit of the milk that was left in the pan, and then we serve it up with a side of crispy bacon. Okay, so that looked pretty easy. Let's try to recreate it now. The first step is to get your pan on the stove. Add your butter and let it melt. While the butter is melting away, grab your parsley, wash it, and chop it finely. It doesn't need to be anything fancy, just kind of like this. Then go ahead and add your milk. Now add your salt and your black pepper. How much salt and pepper do you use? Well, I always say when it comes to cooking, it's better to undersalt than oversalt. So I'm just going to add a little bit of salt, and if we need more, we can always add more later. And I'm going to do the same thing with the pepper, just a little bit. If we need more, we can add more later. I also want to point out that this entire recipe only uses 2 tablespoons of butter. So if you're trying to eat healthy, I would highly recommend using a non-stick pan because you're going to waste less butter and therefore consume less calories. Next, crack your 2 eggs into a bowl. You don't have to do it in the bowl, but I find that it's easier to break up the eggs with the bowl than it is directly in the pan. Once your eggs are broken up, add them to your pan and then bring it up to a low heat. Now you want to constantly scrape the bottom and sides of the pan to make sure that the eggs don't stick. And I know I'm probably wasting a lot of butter here by not using a non-stick pan, but you don't have to do that. You can use a non-stick pan. This is just what I'm working with today. And then after about a minute or two, you want to place your lid on top. And again, I think he did this to keep the eggs warm. But honestly, if you're making this dish, it's probably best to just keep them on low heat until they're done cooking. Because if you keep them warm and then you cook them some more, they're just going to get rubbery. You want them to be soft and fluffy. So after about a minute or so, turn off the heat and then start to fold the eggs over. Now, one thing that I've learned about cooking eggs is that you never want to stir them. You always want to fold them. Because if you stir them, you're going to break up all of those little curds and they're not going to be as visually appealing. You always want to keep them nice and intact. So gently fold them over until they're fully cooked. This should only take about a minute or so. Once they're fully cooked, you can either continue to fold them or you can scrape them into a bowl. I prefer to scrape them into a bowl, mainly because my wrist is blown out from past injuries. So it's a little harder for me to do this. But either way, once they're in the bowl, you can garnish with some of the parsley and a little bit of the milk that was left in the pan. To garnish, I like to use a spoon and mix it all together, and then I pour it on top. And if you want to be fancy, you can even take a piping bag and pipe it in the center of the plate. Now, while the eggs are cooking, go ahead and cook your bacon. You can fry it, broil it, bake it, grill it, pan fry it, however you like. And once it's fully cooked, you're going to want to cut it up into little pieces. The smaller the pieces, the easier it will be to eat and to incorporate into the overall dish. So for this, I'm just going to cut it up into little tiny pieces. And if you're worried about your bacon grease dripping everywhere and making a mess, I actually found a really cool product that you can use to catch all of that bacon grease as it drips off of your bacon. It is basically a little tool that you can place under your bacon as it cooks, and then all of the grease will drip into this little container, and then you can save that grease for later. I actually made an entire video on it. So if you're interested, you can click the link provided. Once the bacon is cut up, you're going to want to place the eggs on top. And that's it, you're done. Plate it up and serve it to your friends and family. One thing that I will say about these scrambled eggs is that they were probably one of the easiest scrambled eggs I've ever made. Normally, I like to add a little bit more salt and pepper, but I didn't need to. These eggs had plenty of flavor. They were very fluffy. They weren't dry and they weren't rubbery. And then the bacon added a nice smoky flavor that complemented the eggs perfectly. Honestly, I could eat this every day and never get tired of it. It's simple, it's classic, and it's delicious. Now I'm curious to know how these compare to Gordon Ramsay's. So let's take a look. Okay, so right off the bat, I see one major difference between mine and his, and that is the color of the eggs. His eggs are definitely more yellow than mine, and that's because he used a different type of egg. He used a brown egg, and I used a white egg. Now I know what you're thinking. What does the color of the egg have to do with anything? Well, a lot. Brown eggs come from hens that are fed a more natural diet, and because of that, their yolks are more yellow. White eggs come from mass-produced chickens that are fed a more processed diet, and their yolks are more white. Now, which one is better? Well, in my opinion, I prefer the taste of brown eggs. I think they have a richer, fuller flavor, and because of that, I think they're better for cooking. However, they are more expensive, so if you're trying to save money, you may want to opt for the white eggs. Other than that, though, everything else is pretty much the same. My eggs are fluffy, his eggs are fluffy. My eggs are creamy, his eggs are creamy. One thing that I will say about mine is that they look a little curdled, but I promise you they're not. They're just as creamy and as smooth as his. And honestly, I couldn't tell you the difference between these two dishes. They both have a great texture and a great taste. And if you blindfolded me and asked me which one I preferred, I would honestly have no idea. Well, friends, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, remember, eat good, live good.